I have a lot of anxiety, right? I do this thing because of my PTSD, or I have ADHD, and that makes me not be able to focus. If we're saying all the things that we don't want, which by the way, those are identities. And when you label yourself that, then you become that box.
Yes, because the body intelligence, the unconscious mind is the intelligence of the body. It is listening to every instruction, every thought, every word, every picture, sound, say, smell, and self-talk, and how we speak about it inside our head. It is listening and then creating exactly what you're focusing on and how you're communicating to yourself.
Welcome to Your True Alchemy,
where we talk about ancient wisdom meets modern mastery so that you can up-level your business, your life, your relationships, and your health. Today, we're going to talk about conscious language. So let's just review real quick. What is the definition to you of conscious language?
So the first step to changing your life, I mentioned this in the last one, is getting in control of our mindset, which is our thoughts. And this whole package of the way we have awareness of ourselves and awareness of others. So it's true communication, but communication doesn't start outside of you. It starts inside of you. So conscious language is getting in control of our thoughts, stubbornly focusing on specifically what we want instead of saying the things that we do not want, and then wondering why we manifest those things. And then speech. Are we casting spells to the universe? So our thoughts matching our speech, which is words, language. And then our actions and habits, all of that flows into, our ability to go create success, have a powerful, empowering relationship, build a business, create a successful career, and especially our health. Because if we're focused specifically on what we want, we got to be focused on health, not running away from disease. And right now we have a society that's running away from disease.
Yeah, for me, it's really figuring out how you communicate to yourself first and foremost. A lot of us are not taught to think positively about ourselves, so really reining in those thoughts that we have on a daily. And then how do we coach ourselves internally to love on ourselves, be kind to ourselves, to get the best results? But then how do we utilize language to then communicate effectively to our spouse, to our kids, to the people we love, or the people that we're selling into their possibility or selling into the mission as a business owner? How do we effectively communicate in a positive way to coach people to their success? So it's using words for volition. The other thing is, like you said, aligning your thoughts, your feelings, and your words to then manifest through the power of the spoken word. But before we talk about that, one of the simple language patterns that we can use to reframe the way that we speak to ourselves, to retrain the brain to focus on what we want, is that anytime that you're thinking a negative thought, or you're creating a negative picture, or you're feeling in a negative way, or you're speaking something out loud to yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to create that. You got to ask yourself, what do I want instead? And then focus on that stubbornly to then make this new reality.
If you're hanging around for people that struggle through life and they think that it's hard to make money and that being healthy is a challenge, then you'll be the fifth person doing that.
Yeah, because your environment will reflect back to you, to your body, what to create and then manifest to yourself. And we're going to be talking about values levels today. And values levels are really important to understand because, first of all, values are the words that people use unconsciously or consciously that motivate them, and also how they feel about something. Is it right or wrong? And it also has to do a lot with our environment. Our environment is what programmed us with our unconscious values. And we used to talk about it in our training and the business alchemy and all of our level 1, level 2 alchemies, all the way to the top. We talk about that our unconscious mind is the goal getter, meaning it is the motor and the engine that drives you to success, and your conscious mind is a goal setter. The reason why your unconscious mind is a go getter is because it's in charge of your values.
And your belief systems, and your attitudes, and your state,
which creates your frequency,
and your emotional reaction. That
and
is
your
like
motivation.
That's your aura that's going out, right? And that's sending all these signals and messages
to the universe,
the morphogenic field that we're all connected to. Whether you can see it, whether you believe it, trust that it's there. It's like gravity.
Right.
Right.
And so understanding conscious language, first and foremost, is that when you understand values, first of all, then you can communicate effectively to somebody that perhaps you're coaching, you're leading, you're managing. If you're in the corporate world and you're in charge of inspiring and motivating your team, or even in your family unit, what are your value system as a family? What do you believe to be true, and what is motivating? What's most important to you in the context of your family, your religion, your spirituality, your business? Anytime that we're having challenges in a relationship and or business, it's because our values have been shifted, because they're what unconsciously
100%.
motivate us. They're also how we know that our needs are getting met and how they're not getting met. So for an example, if my highest value in our relationship right now is communication, and I feel like in our relationship we're not communicating effectively, then we're not going to be aligned, and we're probably going to start more arguments with each other because I don't feel like I'm communicated correctly too.
And because values are, they shape us, what we're going to get into is values levels, right? And our values are shaped because of how we were raised, where we were raised, right? With religion, no religion, with education or school or no education or school, right? A single parent, single mother, single father that raised us versus having a family.
Exactly.
Right? Family values.
Some people are not even aware of their family values. Some families really do say, these are our family values and these are what we live by, right? And so we have values in all areas of life, and that means in our family, our health and wellness, our health and fitness. We have values in the context of money.
All areas of life.
We have values in our business. If you're an entrepreneur, we have values in our career. We have them in relationships. We have them in sex.
A lot of times values are more unconscious than our attitudes. Attitudes we kind of feel. You feel when you're in a grumpy state. You feel when you're like, feeling confident or feeling a little spicy.
Right.
Right. And values are more unconscious because we're not really quite going through our day consciously involved and aware of our values. Even though they're there, this is why this work is so important.
Let's talk about what values levels are, because we were talking about how we have internal compasses and values in our individuality. But we also have packages, or I guess collective archetypal values that we have throughout humanity. And so you're going to look at this in a couple of different ways, and you'll see how this is tied into conscious language, because values are also what people speak about.
Yep.
It's what's most important to them, and you will see these patterns that are tied to the words people use on a daily basis. That is very very important in the context of conscious language. And so when we're looking at evolution of values, so what we were talking about earlier of how somebody will be in a relationship and then they feel like they've gone in two separate ways. Maybe perhaps somebody de-evolved and somebody evolved. Right? Or in the corporate world where you felt aligned, but then all of a sudden you're like, I don't feel like this is connected to who I am anymore. It's just not aligned with who I am anymore. And that's a process of evolution through values. Right. And so what used to be important is no longer important. And so before we get into talking about the different values level systems, let's talk about, first of all, every system or level, if you will. We have to say levels because we're trying to differentiate the different types of value system. However, there is no right or wrong. It's whatever is best for the environment, really.
This is where everyone is so caught up right now in our society, is this forced choice dichotomy.
Right.
Republican, Democrat.
Right.
Left, right.
Wrong, good or evil.
Blue. Black.
And so when we say levels,
Red.
people are assuming that we presuppose because one, like for example, values level 2 is number 2, then 10 is way better than 2. It doesn't necessarily mean that, right?
No.
And so it is amongst whatever value system is most functional for the environment is the best for that person, right? The other thing to think about is that every values level, so we have everyone has positive aspects, right? And then also has shadow aspects.
It means every values level, this is how, if you truly want to transform, master values levels. Like listen to this thing, this episode 2, 3, 4 times. Because we're going to go deeper and deeper into values levels. This is the reason why I believe we transform as quickly as we did from 2 different worlds coming together and then growing a business together.
Yeah, because it gives you the cutting edge of understanding packets of information coming at, and it gives you an understanding of patterns. And so whenever something happens in the world, you can predict what's going to happen before it happens. You can predict people's behavior before anything happens. And then you can also set yourself up for success to serve and also prosper in a downturn market. And you can also create, success through the compassion and love of other people that have different perspectives.
This caused me to have way more compassion and ask more questions of where people are in their life, because it was hard for me to understand people's environment when they grew up, if it was scarce, if it was less than, if they didn't have a mentor or a nurturing family member, that I didn't understand why people had self-worth stuff in business. I didn't understand how people could not take action. Right. And I started to learn so much more about their values and their values levels of the modes of thinking. These are packets of information that they're thinking in. And when you're thinking in these memes, you can understand and literally predict people's behavior. And when you can predict someone's behavior, you can really ask some more questions to influence them on transformation and change and growth, because so many people are stuck in this box that they cannot see. And this is the very societal memes and programs that we talk about. They're so unconscious, they don't even know they're operating unconsciously.
In the context of coaching, we work with practitioners, teaching them high performance modalities to then clear the blocks that are holding them back from success, whatever they decide to do, right? And so in the context of coaching, it's unbelievably powerful to be able to take somebody through a test and figure out where they are in terms of values level thinking, and then also see the shadow aspects that they are here to integrate so they can become more flexible in nature to create more success. It also for yourself to figure out what blocks are holding you back, because when you understand the construct that's holding you back, it's so funny. We'll hear people say, I feel like I'm blocked, but I don't know what it is. And
we hear that all the time.
We can understand what it is because we understand the constructs and the history of where it came from in the first place. And you'll start seeing this once you understand the lens. So it's like looking at the matrix and cracking the code for personal evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, and if you are interested in the quiz, I'll have it down in the links below. Because when you take this quiz, it's not one of those like pass or fail. It's not that kind of quiz at all. In fact, it's the opposite.
Right.
It's more ambiguous because you look at the numbers and there's more of a postulation and a presupposition of based on asking the client, hey, do you have any family stuff going on? Right. How's relationships at home?
And
right?
and then the other thing is that if you are motivating people inside of an organization, understanding values level systems will allow you to motivate them towards the direction and mission and the purpose of the corporation,
and it gives
including your own business.
It literally points in the direction of where you need to improve, because if things trigger you, then that means there's the things to work on, and if things are going great, then you focus more on that. So there's the contrast there. So that's all this whole process is. Again, it's not right and wrong, which is so hard for so many people to hold on to two paradoxes at the same time.
Okay, so let's get into it. And again, there is no right or wrong. There is no better values level system than the other. And also keeping in mind that every values level system has a purpose, and there's a shadow aspect, and then there's a conscious aspect. And so when people are embodied in a values level system, there is a level of being, doing, and having for each one. And it's also connected to the environment. And so what we talk about in terms of environment, how this works, is that we talked about this earlier, is that if you're hanging around people that are not supporting you in your own success and you're constantly fighting them off, they will pull you down like the crab in the bucket.
100%. It's like imagine growing up on a farm in the Midwest, Kansas or Nebraska. You're going to have a completely different set of values and values levels and complexity of thinking than if you were raised in downtown New York City or downtown Chicago.
Not saying that the person that lives in Kansas and is a farmer is less intelligent. It doesn't mean that that's actually not a better lifestyle. There's a lot of people that are going back to the roots and starting farming and leaving the city. So
right.
that's our whole entire point, is that there is no better or worse.
So get through our minds when we're going through this that it's not right or wrong. It just is. And that's really hard. We look at this from a very neutral lens. And if we say something that unfortunately may trigger you, then that's where the investigation of doing the deeper work is, because there could be something to clear out the unconscious level. Maybe a story, right? Maybe a hurt or an event or something that has brought that to our surface. So let's get into it. So what are values levels? Values levels are above all how we evolve our complexity of thinking based on our environment and our nervous system.
Yes. And so let's talk about values level. So we're going to skip over 1 because you're not really going to run into 1. I mean, I guess, and 1 would be an example of a baby coming in, right? Because the 1 is part of the family. So the 1 is all about survival. So
do you know what an archetype is?
Right.
Archetypes are inside of these values, which are inside of values levels. Archetypes are packets of information. They're memes. They're patterns of thinking, being, doing, having, acting, right? And so as we go through our evolution in life or don't evolve through life, we have archetypes that we can relate to. A lot of times there's archetypes from movies. There's archetypes from cartoons. There's these archetypal patterns that show up in all areas of life. When you can figure out those archetypes, you can figure out which one's serving us and which one do we need to let go because it's hurting our success and growth.
So the archetypal pattern that you could categorize level 1 as is that it is pretty much birth and transition, right? So somebody that is operating and thinking as a 1 would be a newborn baby.
It's how you come into this
because
world.
Because it's survival.
And it's how you leave the world.
It's feeding. And then freezing.
So values level 1 is essentially survival. Most of us are not in survival mode as far as coming into this planet. You come in as a baby, you leave as a baby for the most part.
Pretty much.
So it's survival mode. So elderly, right before you transition, you could be considered thinking, not you are, but thinking like a values level 1. Patterns, thoughts, habits.
And so let's talk about values level 2 because this is much more prevalent to this conversation. So values level 2 is the family unit, right? But it's also about tribe and clan. So whatever you see tribal behavior right now coming up online, right? People attacking each other because they have different belief systems, which is very tribal-like behavior.
Sports teams, modern day sports teams are very much tribes, especially the NFL. Right? My team against your team, my tribe against your tribe.
Right.
So when you have, at some point, what evolves, how you evolve out of values level 2, at some point you say, to hell with the chief. I'm tired of doing all these things for the chief for so many years. I want to go be my own boss. I want to be my own person. And you're opening up this values level 3 rebel mindset.
Perhaps, right? Maybe in ancient times, the structure of the tribe or clan, it grew so big. And technically that turning point was the invention of the plow, which allowed them from going from hunter-gatherers to the agrarian period where we could actually farm, which then gave us wheat and food to then power military to then become the warrior archetype like Genghis Khan or Caesar or any of the Alexander the Great. So that is technically values level 3. It is the warrior that wants to go off on their own. I'm not happy with the chief, saying that we all have to share in the tribe. And I'm tired of being told that, we have to sacrifice, because it's very much sacrifice everything for the clan, everything for the tribe, everything for the family. I want to become my own person. I want more than what is given with inside the tribe. And so that person goes off on their own and becomes the archetype of the warrior and or the conqueror or the dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah. So there's a lot of values level 3s. If you're full on living in VL3 mode, right? You are not a values level 3. You're acting and carrying on the characteristics of a values level 3. A lot of values level 3 thinking we find in prison. We find them in jail. We also find them working in the military.
So for me, when I was living in that lifestyle for many, many years, even though I was suffering in my own way, it was also very satisfying because I could be very selfish and the world revolved around me. I thought everybody owed me something. I was very much entitled. I did a lot of things that were against the law. And then I remember there was a shifting point where there were so many times that it almost had died from overdose. And I started realizing, and I got put in jail for prostitution, solicitation inside the club. And I remember looking around inside of the jail of all these women that were in this cage with me and realizing that if I didn't change something, this was my destiny, or worse, being dead, right? And so that was the wake up call for me to start shifting into a different value set where I started actually feeling guilty for the work that I was doing, the way that I was manipulating men. Like I couldn't do it as well anymore. It just didn't feel right. And so my money started not working anymore. I wasn't making as much money. And so I didn't understand this at the time, but I see now looking back at that lens. And that's something that happens to a lot of people that are operating in a very values level 3 system where they are, breaking the law or not living in these higher level values. They get locked up or get in trouble and they start looking to a higher authority or AKA God. This is why in jail, a lot of times people will then end up finding God. And or if somebody is getting arrested for a DUI and then they go into AA is a very values level 4 system, which it introduces the idea that they're powerless over this addiction and they're giving it up to God. So they're looking for a higher authority.
It gives them structure too.
Exactly.
And so what values level 4 does is come in and give structure to the values level 3. And before we had law and order, we had policies.
Yeah.
Before that, we had religion.
Think about it. In
religion
ancient time,
gave structure to the values level 3s. That's where people fit into saying, hey, my lawless life, there's more out there. And so somebody, like let's say, for example, this happens all the time. We hear these stories. Somebody goes to jail. They go to prison. Maybe they're there for a few years. What do? They find the Bible. They find God. And that sinks them into 4. And that's what you're seeing right now. That's what you did when you started feeling guilty about the past behaviors and things you were doing. Same thing for me. When I was 22, I think I got my first wet and reckless. And that's when I realized when I got that, my only wet and reckless, I don't know why I said it that way. When I got that, I realized.
He's talking about the one I got.
What I realized is I was like, holy shit, I need to get my shit together, right? I need to stop drinking. I need to stop partying the way I was and not consciously paying attention to the things that I was actually doing, my behavior.
Yeah.
A values level 3 will do crazy things in their behavior and they're not even aware of what they're doing because they don't care at the
Actually,
end of the day.
their entire life is about not getting caught because when you're thinking of values level 3, the cops are more of an annoyance because you make your own rules and law. And a true values level 3 that isn't going to evolve, they'll go to jail to make more connections to then get out of jail to then break the law even better. Somebody that's ready to evolve will go to jail and they'll find the library and get into books and they'll find something that's a higher authority and to give meaning and purpose of why they didn't create success in all their lawlessness. And so in history, we can really look to, like the conquerors, right? So we had Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan or Caesar or any of these big archetypes that had this large military that was conquering all this land, or the Ottoman Empire, right? And so around these times and or before, monotheism first, came into the world with Akhenaten and his wife in the Egyptian pantheon about 6,000 years ago. And so think about it. You have this huge military. You have all of this spread out. You have conquered territories and wiped out their spiritual system and made them become who you are inside of your belief systems. But then they're going to start rebelling because you don't have enough force to keep everybody from going against what you say and start fighting back because eventually they get pissed off because they're starving. You've taken all their food and you've probably raped and pillaged and all these different things. Like if you're a conqueror, that's what happened. Unfortunately, cancel, clear, delete. That's awful. But this is reality in history. So what do you do to police all of these people? Well, you create a belief system that gives law and order and structure, or you create a government system with law and order and structure, or both, where there is a power that's looking over, right? And a God, right? You've created a God figure that's looking over everything and is policing. And so this is where the emergence of values level 4 came in monotheism, is that instead of reincarnation, which a lot of values level 2 structures have, where you can just reincarnate and or thinking of death was a good thing, right? Like in a lot of traditions, going to the afterlife was a positive thing. But then within these new religious systems, if you didn't do by these certain rules in this lifetime, then you would go to hell, right, you wouldn't go to a heaven. And so it automatically started policing the system around all the territory that you had conquered.
It was a
A
self-policing
self-policing
system,
system.
which is great because it's heaven and hell, right?
Right. And not saying religion isn't, and I'm not saying that I don't believe in God, and I'm not saying that I don't believe in, Jesus. I'm just saying that this is a pattern that you see as the emergence of religion starts taking its stronghold from polytheism into monotheism. This is my perspective.
Scared straight that's VL3 moving into values level 4 thinking.
Right.
Where the bad boy or the bad girl, they nearly, have this event in their life that's like one of those rock bottom moments. It's almost like they, almost lose their life or a touch of death there. They realize they're not the biggest, baddest wolf on the block. They also realize that like they are immortal or mortal. And so, they, they realize they're not going to be around forever. And they start to realize I've got to get my act together. I'm going to have a family, or what have I been doing? I feel like I've wasted my life. And so that's where someone in prison, they find the Bible. They start reading all these books. They've got nothing but time on their hands. And all of a sudden they find God. They realize this belief system fits into their set of values.
And it gives meaning behind the suffering, right? Because some religions baked into it, not all religions, it's a very sacrificial system. So you're sacrificing in the eyes of God. You're sacrificing your now in order for nirvana or heaven in the future. And I'm not saying that all religions are monotheistic, because there are religions like Buddhism they believe in many, many different deities, or Hinduism. That's also a religion. Anything with an ism is a religion, right? So it is an ism. And it gives you meaning behind the suffering in this lifetime. And so values level 4 is the rules and system. So anytime you hear religion, safety and security is a big word for values level 4. Yeah. And so another thing that you'll see within values level 4 thinking, and again, none of this is right or wrong, there's conscious and unconscious, is dichotomous thinking. Right? Where you're going to see you only have two options, and anything that's outside of that, any gray area is basically heresy.
Justice must be served.
Or quackery, right?
It's very values level 4.
So think the witch hunt, right? And so this will also, so values level 3 will kill you because you're in the way. Values level 2 will kill you because of the family and or our land. And values level 4 will kill you for ideology. And so this is one of the patterns we're seeing. People are killing each other online, not like physically killing, but the mob of values level 2 tribal ways with values level 4 ideology, with dichotomous thinking and justice must be served thinking, which is values level 4. This is where people are virtue signaling. The word virtue is values level 4.
It's values level 4
It's
word.
virtue signaling. So my beliefs are better than yours. So therefore, I'm going to get out the pitchforks and I'm going to round you up and I'm going to roast you at the stake or crucify you online. You see this archetype, which, by the way, from my perspective, is not very Jesus-like. Jesus was not all about crucifying people for their different belief systems, from my knowledge of reading scripture. So it's just interesting. So one of the things that we see that values level 4 suffers with is because it's been baked in. And it also is because, think about our history, there has been lots of suffering. There's been lots of war. And so inside the religion, there is a thing that suffering is actually a positive thing. And it's a paradox, right? Suffering you can learn from. In fact, some of the best wisdom comes from suffering. But also choosing to suffer is a choice, right? And so there's a lot of sacrificial and suffering inside of it. And there's a lot of fear around failing. There's a lot of fear of making mistakes. There's a lot of fear of what people will think, fear of what society will say. There's fear of being publicly judged. There's fear. We know people in our program that are amazing people that are here to serve the world with their gifts, and they're afraid to get online because they're afraid of getting crucified, right?
Which is a very values level 4 fear.
Right.
Right? Is that if I grow to such success that people will attack me.
Why? And it is, it's in our DNA, because whether it has been passed down through epigenetics, where you have been either one of your family members have been hung, crucified, burned at the stake, or even a past life, that is in your field, and it is a legitimate fear because it does not feel good.
Majority of our society is at values level 4, and it's because of the model employee, roles and duties, responsibility, discipline, being a good citizen, being a dutiful citizen. Everyone knows there's a right way
and a wrong way.
And a wrong way to do everything, and it's about doing things the right way.
Yep.
When you hear right way or the correct, proper way, that's values level 4.
Yeah.
It's values level 4 at its best because the reality is you're making the right decision for your life, and this is dichotomous thinking. Now, dichotomous thinking is great because, you can tend to you're controlling a system of people that want to do good by each other. The problem is when you're trapped into only thinking there's a right and a wrong way.
Right.
And as an entrepreneur, for those that are, there's more than 2 ways to build a business, a right way and a wrong way, right? There's multiple options and multiple scenarios. And so the values level 4 brings in systems, and it brings in structure, and it brings in organization,
which we need
to a company in the context of business, right?
And discipline, being able to put your head down and work for a period of time in order to get a result. Because values level 3, remember, is like, I want it now.
The good thing about values level 4 is responsibility. Values level
Right.
4s will take responsibility in their career, in their life, in their relationship.
They're willing to work hard.
Values level 3s don't take any responsibility.
No.
They don't want responsibility because they want to be able to kind of cheat the system if they haven't learned from cheating the system yet, right? They're still in that mode of cheating the system until they realize, oh my gosh, I got in trouble. I got arrested. Now I'm scared straight, and I'm going to fall into the rule of law, right? Law and order is values level 4.
Okay, so now, since we've been talking about 2, 3, and 4, I want to ask you, where do you see the language that's being used in propaganda in the media quite often? It's for your safety and security.
For your safety.
For your family.
And security.
And this is not to poo-poo on religion and or any of these things, because all of this is necessary in terms of evolution. And there is very beautiful values inside of, we believe that religion is steeped in knowledge and wisdom. And there's so much to be learned from these truths that are inside of spiritual teachings, right?
Actually, it's the person with the most flexibility can lead, control, and really win the system. And that is the flexibility of moving in and out of values level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and beyond.
And when you start studying different types of religions around the world and how they came about, and you start looking at the code. So my perspective is the Bible was not supposed to be read individually. It is a part of a collection of different scriptures to be read all at the same time to get a bigger picture, because they're all saying the same thing.
Yep.
They're all one way to get to God. They're all different ways. There is no right or wrong way.
But what they're doing is they're chunking down as saying this is the right way.
And it's interpreting.
Our way
yes.
is the best way.
Which then creates people fighting over words, talking about conscious language. Yeah, if you start breaking down the code of the words of what they truly mean,
so if people
you realize they're saying the same thing.
So if people are fighting over a label that's God, and we call it Allah versus Jesus Christ,
Yahweh,
Yeshua, Yithoth, all these things, Magdalena, whatever one may think.
Right.
If we're fighting over that, then that's already dichotomous thinking inside
Mine
this
is better than
religious
yours.
box, which again, ask yourself, it's not right, it's not wrong. Is it empowering to you?
Right.
Right? Is it empowering to your goals, your values, your family? And most importantly, is it empowering to all of humanity, all the peoples?
And going back to Jesus's teachings that we are all from one, and we all bleed red. We're all the same. We are all brothers and sisters. And so starting to love each other and being okay that other people have different perspectives. And that's the point of this conversation.
So dichotomous thinking is something that very much is something that I think if you wanted to start to begin to transform your thinking in your life, dissect what dichotomous thinking is and how you operate inside that construct of dichotomous thinking, which means it's left, it's right. Everyone knows it's right and wrong, black and white, red versus blue. us against them, right? So this dichotomous thinking is what keeps values level 4 stuck and trapped. Justice must be served is another one. Afraid of making mistakes, failure. So here's where values level 4 really struggle in business is they're either afraid of success or they're afraid of failure. And they're afraid, not of failure so much, but they bring fear in because they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to say the wrong thing. What will other people think of me? The people pleasing, right? The failure to take action. This is where the career person who's been at this job for 15, 25 years says, you know what? I've made all this money for my boss. To hell with him. I want to go build my own business. But the hardest jump to make is from 4 to 5. Because the reality is everything the company did for you, you now have to do for yourself. And that's a really large leap up into 5. Because 5 is about profit. Values level 5 is about confidence. It's being and loving sales. It's loving the idea of complete independence. Now, there's a con to 5 too. Pros and cons in each values level, right? But the reality is if you bring a great value and product to the context of business, right? There are shadow aspects, which we're seeing that now. And that's one of the hardest ones to make is what will people think of me? Now, values level 4s have a lot of self-worth issues. They're always looking for a guru or a figure.
They're looking to put somebody on the pedestal. And so this is where the comparison syndrome comes in, is the pattern of, in the worthiness of God or a higher authority, whether it be a government official, somebody that's in your mastermind that you believe is better than you, somebody that's in business that's better than you, looking up to a guru and believing that everything they say is they are perfect. They are a perfect version. And then comparing yourself and beating yourself up that you're not good enough. And so this is where we see imposter syndrome, the comparison syndrome, as well as the perfectionism, because you're never perfect enough, right?
In the eyes of God.
Right. And so let me talk about this because I think this is really important to talk about perfection. So in the ancient traditions, if you start looking into the text, so to become perfect, which is holy, right? So holy means perfection, right? Perfection means that you are going to, if you look it up in the dictionary, it means going over and over again, failing to then develop spiritual wholeness. And so there's a driver inside of us that's driving us to become spiritually whole, which paradoxically presupposes that we're going to go out and make lots of mistakes to learn from those mistakes, to then ascend through those mistakes to become more embodied in love, Christ consciousness, and holy, right? However, some people in this world, because of the program, we, instead of working on our spiritual development and spiritual wholeness, we have then looked outside of ourselves to think that materialism is a way of doing that, which is talking about values level 5. The more success I have, the more cars I have, the bigger house I have, or the better my physical body looks, which is values level 3, like our physical body, like I have to have like perfect big lips and perfect butt and have the perfect rock abs or whatever it is. This is another way of the manifestation of a distortion of the lack of spiritual wholeness.
The one word, perfect, is values level 4. That is a hypnotic suggestion. That is a construct in and of itself. And this is something that is in society, right? When you look at the way people want to look perfect.
Yeah.
We have plastic surgery.
That's why I got breast implants. I just got my breast implants taken out in December, right?
That's for another episode.
Yes. And
so
the thinking behind of it.
Perfect is insane. Perfect doesn't exist. That is an illusion.
Yes.
That has so much of society trapped into looking a certain way, being the perfect role model, being the perfect,
leader,
dutiful, values level 4 person, right? Perfect is a fascinating word that presupposes so much other negative emotions.
Right. And again, but it's also a beautiful driver inside of us that is begging our soul to spiritually develop and go out there and be of service and create mistakes and learning from it. So getting wisdom from our experience. And so why we're talking about this is values level 4 really struggles with perfection. And so that when they're trying to move into values level 5, which is becoming a business owner, a conscious business owner, they struggle of launching because it's never good enough.
Think about how this feels.
Or I'm not smart enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not capable enough.
You
right?
know there's a right way and a wrong way to be a perfect, dutiful citizen.
So this is a program.
That's values level 4 thinking, right? So that's where, values level 4, again, such beautiful gifts with the structure and organization. You need that in your life,
Yes.
right? Having a schedule, by the way, when there's a business owner, and we work with a lot of business owners and coaches and practitioners that they can't show up on time to an appointment, that's because they don't have enough values level 4.
Right.
Now, values level 3s will always consistently show up 2 to 3 minutes late or 10 minutes late because they haven't realized that time is a valuable thing, and that the more discipline, spiritual discipline you bring into your life, you actually create more freedom.
Right.
That is the paradox. That is, if you have more structure and you bring some more discipline in, you create freedom.
Right.
A values level 3 doesn't understand that because they run from discipline, they run from responsibility, they run from the structure. And so therefore they don't have enough of that schedule, that structure to build a solid platform, a solid foundation on top of, because that's what it needs. That's what you need to run a business is you need structure. You need people that are going to show up to work. You need to make sure you pay your people on time so they do show up to work, right? And so there's all these things that systems that corporate structures have created. That's a beautiful system for people to go to work, get paid, come home, and live life.
Right. And so another thing to know about values level 4 and 5. So values level 4, they will give up their freedom for safety and security and certainty. Because think about values level 4, everything's certain. You know what, if you're working for an organization, you know what you can do, what you can't do. You know how to succeed and you know how not to succeed, because everything is like laid out for you.
Now the flip side.
And same thing with religion. You have all these different guidelines on how to live in order to be successful inside those belief systems. So it's very certain. Not saying that it is,
that's the
inside
reason
the corporate
why.
world is not very free in a lot of ways.
That's why a majority of people work for a company and get paid a
It's
W-2 salary, or they get
and the
paid
benefits
every 2 weeks, because that is safety, comfort, security. And that's certainty.
It's
and
the
if you
golden handcuffs.
If you have certainty, then you can build a beautiful, right, the American dream, the white picket fence, right? You can do that. Now, here's the flip side to the structure thing that I said in the structure and the scheduling of being a business owner or an entrepreneur is rigidity. Rigidity is the tip off that if you're over rigid into this values level 4 system and you're not flexible, now that's something that also one would want to consider investigating, right? Where did this rigidity come from? Is it trauma? Is it something, because the challenge and the downside with values level 4s, they have a lot of money blocks. They have a lot of self-worth stuff, which Deb mentioned, and they can be extremely rigid and dogmatic. And so if you're extremely rigid and dogmatic, you're not flexible enough to communicate with a wide audience of people. And what's happening right now is, it's like it's us against them, and the same thing is happening in values level 4. We're seeing this real time, right? We're fighting over things that if society would chunk up to the greatest neurological level, we'd realize we want the same highest intention.
Yeah.
So
this is what we see.
Values level 4s are
online.
highly judgmental.
Right.
Highly judgmental, because they're judging the other thing, the other ism, system, person, right? Values level 4s will look at an entrepreneur and say, they think of values level 5 as like actually a 3. Like, oh, they're just making all this money and they don't care about the planet.
And they could be.
Right. Which we're going to get into.
Right. And so what's the transition from values level 4 into 5?
So the values level 4,
let's talk about COVID.
Yeah. So
This is
values
a
level
perfect
4
time to talk
thinks
about
they've
COVID.
got this illusion of safety, comfort, security.
Right.
And what happened when we were in Austin, Texas, is bars and restaurants were pretty much eliminated overnight, right? They were shut down.
What is bars industry?
And the service industry.
What would you say?
If you're working in the service industry,
Not always, but
you're
yes.
very much 4-3.
Right.
You're up late at night, you're taking care of customers, which is 4. You've got the structure, you show up to work, you get paid. And that safety, comfort, security, that certainty of a paycheck was eliminated. How many people in the corporate world, same thing. They thought their job was totally comfortable.
Maybe they were climbing the corporate ladder, and then all of a sudden COVID completely changed everything.
The one thing they did disrupt was your environment. So they either took you from the office and made you work from home, or they eliminated your position altogether and you got fired because they had to, they were they're basically laying people off, right?
So yeah, so what happened is, a lot of people got laid off. So some people, when they get laid off and they went back home and they started living with their family.
So what happens from values level like 4-3, whereas if you had a job, now all of a sudden, some people, they're like, I don't have any money. I got to move out. Like we had a lot of young people we knew that they were working tending bar or servers, waitresses, whatever, running and managing a restaurant. And they literally moved home back to VL2.
Right.
Right? Back
because
to
there's
values
still
level 2.
stuff to work on there and to fully embody in that system.
So it's kind of like you'll revert to the area of your highest preparation.
It's just like in the military,
It's
right?
kind of like the military term, right? You'll revert to your training. And that's what happened is your values level 4 job gets eliminated and you're kind of in a VL3-4 world anyways. Individual, you maybe you're attending bar, whatever it was. So a lot of these people from Austin, they moved back home with family because they didn't have a job.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford rent anymore, especially in downtown Austin.
Some people that were in the corporate world then ended up going and, maybe they got laid off. And so maybe they went back to school, which is
Some
values
people went
level
back
4.
to school. So
traditional education is
now
values
they're
level 4.
now they're just reworking values level 4 patterns and behaviors. Some
Right.
people said, to hell with this. I'm not going to go back to corporate. Like this is spurring me to jump into 5. I'm going to build my own business.
Right.
I'm going to get the skills to learn marketing and sales and how to communicate at a deeper level. I'm going to launch a business online and do products or, e-commerce or whatever. And so there's a lot of people that said, you know what? I've always wanted to get my real estate license and get into real estate. I knew people that did that.
Right. And some people ended up getting a corporate job, but then also had a side hustle, which is, on the fence of values level 4 and 5, right? It's not right or wrong. It's just interesting because think about it. Remember the values level is the way that it's a 3-part thing. In order for you to fully embody a values level and to integrate the shadow into the light, you must embody and walk the walk of all of that system. And so let's say that we have this beautiful river that's been running down this, this canal for many, many years. Every time that flood, it fills up with water and it runs down this crevice. But let's say that you're like, okay, I'm so done with this crevice. I want to reroute the river somewhere else. But that's going to take some work. It's going to take you digging a trench large enough that whenever it rains again, it doesn't go back the old way, it goes to the new way. And so that means walking the walk of that new thing. And for some people, it's taking a couple of steps back and reworking that system in order to then fully embody the next system. And so the fascinating thing that we see right now, and a lot of people have been talking to us, is that there was a lot of people that were spiritual, right? And we're going to talk about values level 6 and 5 in a moment, but I just want to seed this context is that a lot of people that were in the spiritual community, now that stuff has shifted and changed, our political atmosphere has shifted and changed. A lot has happened since COVID. Now you see people going back into values level 4 religion and finding a new way inside the old religion perhaps that they grew up with. And there is no right or wrong for that. That's what that person needs in order for them to fully develop themselves in the path that they're leading.
The one thing we've noticed with these patterns of training and coaching so many people
right.
is that when someone feels out of control in their behavior, and you notice it with their language and the words they speak. If they feel like they're out of control with their patterns, their behavior, their results, their success in life, they usually revert into 4 structure, some kind of 4 structure, right? Or if you're, thinking more like an entrepreneur values level 5, you're still going to sink into some kind of values level 4 training, education, which is why a lot of people come through and do personal growth and development trainings, right? And that's because people are looking for the structure, which religion is. And that's what's happening right now. People that were thinking very spiritual, they were open, so many things, like the Charlie Kirk thing especially, question people's values. And so people are sinking now more into this type of, religious structure that's giving them certainty. Mm-hmm. If you feel uncertain, you're going to look for certainty, right? The first thing you do when you walk into a room of strangers at a networking event or a conference is you look for faces of familiarity, right? And so that's what people are doing right now. And there's nothing wrong with going back into another values level that's maybe a lower values level and reworking that system, because maybe you need to close some things out. And you're doing your best when we say close things out, you're working within behaviors. And maybe a great example is family stuff, family drama. You haven't been home for Christmas or New Year's or any holidays for years. And then you finally get this feeling, my parents are getting older. I'm going to go home and see dad and squash the beef that I had with him. This doesn't have to be you, man. This could be anyone.
Or women.
Right? So we do this with values. We do this with family, especially VL2, right? Where we move away from home, some of us, and we still may have that unspoken that we still haven't addressed. And we're feeling a little guilty, or maybe we're feeling a little something off, and we want to go home and, squash that for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever holiday you decide to celebrate together as a family. That's going back to, again, kind of values level 2 tradition, values level 2 family.
And reworking that system.
And that's a great thing because we want to be, again, whole, totally aligned,
and
totally
this is
congruent.
not like going up is the only way, right? Like This is all about blending all of these systems to figure out what's right for you and the person as an individual.
A lot of times these values levels, you're taking 2 steps forward and you're kind of taking 1 step backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, because in order to transform and change, something else kind of has to fall away, right? We're so focused on, a lot of times in our society, is hacking away. We're so focused on what we gain, but we're not focused on what we're going to hack away. What's the unessential, right? What are we letting go of? What are we letting the death archetype come in and the ending of the old so we can birth something new?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so going back to our conversation of COVID and people, going back either going and finding another corporate job when they got fired. So that's values level 4. It's going back into the same system, or going into school to then get another job, right? That's reworking the old system. Or some people then said, hey, I'm actually been wanting to do this for a long time. I want to start my own business because I'm not going to wait now. I want to start now. And so that's where the birth of values level 5. Again, values level 5 is not also, there's a shadow aspect of values level 5, and we'll talk about the corporate values level 5 that is actually destroying the planet and is also controlling the government. And
that's where they've gone. That's where their corruption is coming.
Yes.
And people will do this where they go, oh my gosh, you know what? In order for me to get a better job, I need to go back into school, get the degree, get the license. And then what they're trying to do, though, what they don't realize, that's the hamster wheel of hell. For so many practitioners we've helped, they realize that they're reworking values level 4. They're going to do it better, harder, longer, faster. Better, harder, longer, faster. And values level 4, which is a great system. And yes, if you're going to work in health and practitioners, a lot of them need a license. The reality is you don't need a license to help another human being out in their life, right? There's service on this planet. And so this is something too, to know your own pattern and recognize it. Are you reworking the same VL4 system, expecting a different result? Because we have a lot of practitioners burnt out in the, nurse practitioners, doctors, they're burnt out of the system, and they're starting to see where the values level 4 system is falling short and keeping people stuck, keeping people unfortunately sick, especially inside the insurance model. Right. And so we have a lot of that. So recognize, where is the values level 4? Where's your boundary there? And then jumping into 5, it's not a matter of if you want to, you choose to do it. It's not evolution's not guaranteed, right? You get to choose whether you want to evolve through these systems or not.
And it's also about integrating, taking the best and leaving the rest, from my perspective. Like going back and getting the corporate job to then build up structure and discipline to then be able to apply it into your business. Same thing with people that are going back into religion. I noticed that I went into different avenues of different faith-based structures to then clear out, because I felt very burnt. I rejected a lot of the Christianity that I was around as a child for many, many years, and then going down the rabbit hole of really understanding that structure inside the religion to where then I can take the best and leave the rest. And I think a lot of people are doing that right now. So it's not like you're like taking a step backwards. Is actually part of your evolution of integrating, right? And that's what you're trying to say too.
The key is wholeness and flexibility. Right? Because
and it's clearing the traumas and dramas that you have around certain things within inside of each system.
If you have zero drive to build a business, that is totally fine. Right? We're not saying everyone needs to be a business owner. In fact, most people are actually not designed to build a business.
Also, values level 5 can also be inside of the corporate structure. as a high level leadership inside of a corporate structure that's already working well.
I mean, CEO or C-suite executives, right? CEOs, CFOs, COOs, technology officers. If you're like high up in a corporation,
and then you're driven for
you're
success
already thinking
as
more
5.
like a values level 5,
Right.
Right. That doesn't mean you're full on 5.
And that doesn't mean that like there is a full on 5.
And that doesn't mean you're full on 4, right? There's also ranges of this though. The reality is there is a range of thinking, and again, there is no perfection of each values level. This whole system,
it's just a system. So there is no system that you can put a human in a box
this
because it breaks the system.
in and of itself is a values level 4 system
Right.
because it's the only way to teach the
It's
system.
limiting.
It's already limited in and of itself
Yeah.
that there are these different levels of consciousness, but it's a way for us to teach it in some kind of a sequential, organized sequence that makes sense.
So going back to values level 5, so what's most important in values level 5 is freedom. Right? Because they perhaps are rejecting. Remember, it's also the evolutionary process. Like leaving the values level 2 tribe, you're leaving that family unit because you're rejecting those values and you want to have your own set of values.
So like
thing with 3,
productivity,
you're rejecting those 3 values so then you can fully embody the structure and faith of religion and or safety and security of the system, which is really good. And then you're rejecting some of those values and clearing those out and then stepping into 5. So this is about rejecting the old and or clearing the old and then stepping into a new system and then integrating it into wholeness.
Which is why so many people want to leave the corporate world.
Right.
When you've been in a job for 20 years or 30 years or more.
And the first thing they'll say, why are you doing what you're doing? Is because I want freedom.
I just needed to get away from what I was doing. I needed some freedom. I needed to reset. And that's where freedom, productivity, performance, optimization, right? Coaching in and of itself is actually values level 5.
Right.
Right. Tony Robbins put coaching on the map because therapy is a very values level 4 system. Nothing wrong with that. There's
fantastic
amazing therapists that we know.
There's also some really messed up therapy as well.
We've had psychotherapists, we've had shrinks, counselors, family workers, social workers come through our trainings and certification programs. And there's some fantastic therapists that love their clients and patients and they want to create results and help people.
But the structure
there's also a values level 4 system that has also
been capitalized by values level 5
people from transforming because of why?
Why pharmacology?
They'd rather have people on psychotropic medications,
which is values level 5 on steroids.
That's selling drugs instead of selling like performance.
Right, and so values level 5, like capitalism is values level 4, but crony capitalism, where we do not care about people, we don't care about the planet, we only care about profit, is the shadow aspect of values level 5.
So let's recap this. So values level 2 is we, the tribe.
Yeah.
To values level 3, I want to be somebody. It's all about me. Get out of my way.
Yeah.
Right? Which is good and bad.
I'm going to get mine.
Get out of my way. Mm-hmm. To values level 4, we again, the corporation, or we, the society, or
it's all about service. So 3 is all about taking, and then service is values level 4,
4
which is all
about
good.
serving. Serving is
good.
a beautiful thing.
Yes.
For some of us, we got to serve better.
Yeah, we can serve more.
We could serve a whole hell of a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
And then 5 is back to I. Right? Mine is the best way, and I'm going to test the best way. And science, we're going to test, and science is going to prove which way is the best way.
Right.
I know specific people in construction that I worked with that were in their 50s and 60s years old. They were solid values level 3 thinking. They were solid values level 2 family. It was like 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Very little 4 because it was just enough to like make money and pay the bills and like kind of keep their company together. And that's not wrong. But don't think that people are going to evolve through these values levels. The whole point of this is to meet people where they're at so you can better communicate with them, have compassion with where they're at, ask more questions, get curious, which is what we're not doing in society right now.
And going back to conscious language, understand that just because people value certain things that's different than you doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Exactly. If people don't value money.
If somebody has grown up in an environment where they constantly had to fight their way through to continue to be safe, then you could understand why, their belief systems around the world is going to be a little bit different than yours.
And if they don't value money, that doesn't mean they're less than.
Right.
Right? There's a lot of us that are not motivated by money. We're motivated by something else, some other mission, purpose, impact. And so this is something that's really key, is just because we don't understand why someone's not motivated by what we are. This was hard for me to understand in business. Why are people not motivated to go make more money? Right? Because they were more motivated by just raising a good family.
Right.
Or being a good person.
or having a good job and providing for their family, which is values level 4,
Sure.
right? Or, going to church and doing the right thing and, tithing and, being of service, right? And contribution to society and walking the path of Christ, which is absolutely wonderful.
Christ consciousness has
Right.
incredible gifts
Not everybody
and
wants
learnings.
to grow a business. Not everybody wants to work up the corporate ladder. Not everybody wants the same things. And that's what's so beautiful about this is that everybody has the ability to want something different, and all of us can respect and love each other as brothers and sisters.
In fact, we were just recently watching and doing some research around the whole blue zones
Right.
and realizing actually like how these centurions,
Yeah.
meaning they lived over 100 years or close to it.
And they're living in a values level 2 and 4 because religion and faith is a big part of their belief systems.
Community.
So
one thing is they weren't isolated like so many elders in our country
Right.
are. They weren't just put away
they
in
had
some
healthy
rest home.
food.
They ate very
good
healthy,
exercise.
nutritious, whole, real food.
They had family and or they had community around them that cared and loved
They were
like
active.
family.
They were active and consistently moving, gardening, walking, even going up like Sardinia. They're walking up these paved rock
Right.
streets.
And most of them also had some sort of spiritual belief system, believing in a higher power beyond yourself, right? Which is a big, important thing from my perspective, is to believe that there's something beyond yourself. And a lot of them had a traditional religion that they believed in that created community, but it gave faith.
Gave them faith.
And it also gave them structure of living a beautiful life of service.
Absolutely.
And so
And
to
they all
say
had
these people are living a lot longer than people that are living in values level 5, which is all about living and burning the candle of both ends, not all values level 5. And the corporate structure where you're becoming a leader and you work 17 hours a day and or 24 hours a day, you don't have any rest, and you're chained to materialism. That's also a different way of living. And what one is right or wrong, however the person wants to live is right for them.
I can't remember what the name was, but it was when you have purpose in the Okinawa community. It was like Igana or Ikana, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And if they lost purpose, those were the ones that didn't live as long as the others that were hitting 101, 102, 105 years old. And that's something that's very true about values levels is like, what is our purpose? Because that can help you better and deepen understand what your focus is and what you want to create.
Well, and going back to our conversation is that a lot of people since COVID and the interesting things that's happening in our government,
Their whole world has
actually
been turned upside down.
but they're also going back and living in a very communal type of lifestyle. People have bought land together.
We're
they're
tapping
living,
into values level 6.
and 2, right?
2,
They're
4,
gardening
6.
and living off the land. And some people are living inside of a religious structure, right? And some people are living in a spiritual type of a commune, but commune is actually values level 2. So, like, what is right and wrong? There is no better or worse.
I
And
will
so-
say this, if you are feeling isolated and you're trying to heal or you're trying to get over some kind of a relationship struggle, business deal that went south, maybe a business that failed or a job that you got fired from, whatever it is, health issue. Being isolated is not the best way to heal. There's another way to heal, and the definite way that we have seen more people heal in a more rapid, accelerated rate with love and abundance is around community.
Yes.
The one thing that we see is the people that consistently show up to, community events, trainings, retreats, because you can share, you can express, you can get wisdom and ideas from others. If you're trying to do this alone and go at it alone, which entrepreneurship, I can tell you this, can feel very lonely. Hell, raising a family and being in a career can feel very lonely. I would strongly urge you to consider how powerful community is and what prevents you from joining a community to help. Right. And I think that's where some people, because we're so isolated, social media, programs, everything we're talking about right here is actually preventing people from connecting to a higher vibe community, higher frequency, to really help and reach out for help. Because that's what I think some people have such a hard time, especially guys right now, men that are struggling. It's like, reach out, right? Ask for help. And most importantly, get into a community that rises. Rising tide rises all boats.
Right. So thank you so much for joining us for our values level. And this is going to be we're going to have another one because we have more values levels to cover. We will see you.
Hopefully you got something out of this.
Yeah.
We'll have links down below to check out more research there for you.
Yes. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Thank you for being a part of Your True Alchemy.